All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast weekly real estate tip. And today I'm here to talk to you about the NAR settlement and what every realtor needs to know. And in my opinion, what every realtor needs to be doing right now inside their real estate business. And by realtor, I mean if you are part of NAR. So whether you're an individual agent, team leader, brokerage owner, these are things that apply to all of us that are a part of NAR. Now, you might be saying to yourself, oh, Josh, man, this stuff rolled out in August of 2024. At least as of the date of me releasing this podcast, it's now into November of 2024. Oh, man, this is old news. Look, a lot in our industry don't understand and don't realize that this is yet to be fully approved by the courts. We only to this point, and still as of right now, at least as of the time that I'm recording this podcast, we only have preliminary approval. So it is guesstimated that the courts are actually going to fully sign off and fully approve this into law starting November 26th. So yes, it is true that in August, NAR gave us all a date of August 17th to roll this stuff out. So depending on, what area, what state that you're in, like my state here where I run my real estate business here in Phoenix, Arizona, or in Arizona, Arizona came out and said, hey, you have to have these in place by August 1st. So that had some variances there. But why is this important to know and to understand? Okay, up to this point, who has been enforcing these rules, these regulations, and these new changes, these new rules of engagement that we have to abide by? Hopefully brokers, like the broker that you're with, or if you're a broker, like you're inspecting what you expect and making sure that your agents are being compliant. So at a brokerage level, at an MLS and board level, maybe your state department level, maybe NAR. I don't know if NAR's been, what their involvement has been as far as inspection, but definitely, at the state, local board, and brokerage level, and there's been consequences there. There's been penalties there's, fines, there's all those things. But once this goes into official law, then from there, that is where then, boom, these attorneys are going to be watching us like hawks. And I'm not sitting here to say that attorneys haven't been watching what we're doing to this point, but once this gets approved on November 26th, if it gets approved, again, we have like verbal approval. It's not, how many deals have you done where the other clients gives you a verbal acceptance, and then all of a sudden you get a call back an hour later saying, oh, no, we changed our mind. We're going with something else or doing something different, right? So who knows what this is going to look like? There could be different variations. There could be different changes. This could get pushed back. We don't know. It's just we have a target expected sign off date of this on November 26th of 2024. But then again, we then enter, once this gets approved, we will now enter an era where we are now under the biggest microscope that we've ever been as an industry collectively. So we are now under the biggest microscope that we've ever been. People are going to be watching. I'm not saying they haven't been watching thus far, but again, it's been really to this point at the local level, board level, brokerage level. And once these attorneys come in, because if you just break this down and really look at this, okay, in a very quick period of time, these attorneys essentially got like $1 billion payout, and I know not all that went to the attorneys, but like 350 million of that went to these attorneys. The vast majority, the biggest collective chunk of money, just like all, class action lawsuits, the attorneys are the ones that really win out. If you look at, okay, what did the actual homeowners, home sellers that were part of this class action lawsuit, like what did they actually collect? I've heard ranges anywhere from like as low as like $13 up to like $30. Like they got peanuts, so if you think that they're not going to be looking to take advantage of more quick paydays, big paydays, and whether you believe it's deserved or not, we're now a target and we're under that massive, massive microscope. We've just really entered this lawsuit era, and we have for a long time now, as just for collectively as a country and kind of a globe, but really specifically here as a country. But it's just enhancing. It's just getting, becoming more and more so with that. So this is something that we have to have big awareness of. And look, I don't know if you've been experiencing this, but I just want to go through a couple things with you just so you have, some awareness of this in your own business, because I don't want to sound like I'm being a conspiracy theorist here, but there is no shortage of evidence in other scenarios, other situations where people aren't baited into going out there and crossing those lines, right? Where they, get baited into doing something nefarious, baited into, having conversations, colluding, having conversations, doing actions, whatever. And then going out there and getting punished for those actions. I mean, this has been something that governments have done, attorneys. I mean, there's no shortage of evidence of these things taking place historically. So who is to say that this isn't going to happen inside of our industry, right? We have to plan and prep for this stuff taking place. So I will say this, being a real estate team leader. Now, I haven't had this personally happen to me. This is me having conversations with my teammates, that have, over the last several months since this rolled out in August, have been getting, not a ton of them, but I've had a few of my agents come to me and approach me where they've just, some of my agents that have a lot of listings, right? Where they've just gotten some really weird phone calls that they haven't gotten in the decade plus that they've been in the industry prior to this, where they're really specific, asking very specific commission questions that aren't like questions that any typical normal lead asks us. They're not allowing us to get, collect their information. It's just, very targeted, specific commission questions in such a way where it feels like a bait. So that leads me to one of the reasons as to why, I might sound like I'm being, a conspiracy theorist here. Maybe I'm just being a little bit paranoid, but we need to have awareness of this. Another thing that I've been seeing a ton of is in all these big real estate Facebook groups, like you guys know what these are. I don't know all the names of them, but like Lab Coat Agents, I think is one, and, Real Estate Master. I mean, there's, several of them I'm a part of. I'm sure that you're a part of these too, where they have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of agents. They're free kind of Facebook group masterminds to ask questions and to just kind of, mastermind is, peer-to-peer inside of our industry. Well, I've seen a ton of anonymous posts inside these Facebook groups asking, again, very targeted commission questions. And then from there, boom, just seeing hundreds and hundreds of comments. And if you look at, okay, well, why did we get into this situation in the first place? How was this brought forth? And how do we get in this situation in the first place? Well, and I'm not saying that this was valid. I'm not saying that this took place. I'm not saying that this happened, but this is just what, we were told about collectively us as an industry is getting together, including and fixing commission rates, and that's what brought these about. So we're not supposed to collude. We're not supposed to go out there and talk about commissions and, kind of fix those commission rates as an industry. But then I'm seeing this happen inside these Facebook groups, but every single time it's like an anonymous poster. And it's just, again, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying that this is, trying to bait us as an industry, but I am saying, hey, I wouldn't be surprised again. There is no shortage of evidence of this, historically in other industries and just all and just life, right? Where people have, been baited. It's a common tactic that takes place. So if you are a Facebook group admin to one of these large groups, I've done this on all my Facebook groups, even like the, GSD mode free Facebook group that's, I have for the podcast listeners and those that watch and listen to the podcast here, just a mastermind group. And we're small. We only have about 13,000 people in that group. But like I've made it where you cannot do an anonymous post. That's a setting inside the Facebook group. So if you guys know any of the moderators, admin, and again, I know that kind of sucks because it's like, hey man, people should be able to ask anonymous questions. Maybe they're, really struggling, going through a tough time. They don't want their name out there, but I think that from an accountability perspective, that might help derail some of this stuff going out there. But anyway, we have to have awareness of this because again, now that we are under the biggest microscope that we've ever been as an industry, there's just certain things that we need to make sure that we're abiding by. We got to make sure that we understand and know the new rules of engagement. I'm going to walk you through 6 things that I highly encourage you to make sure that you are doing right now inside your real estate business, to make sure that you're fully compliant, to make sure that you're protected, to make sure that you're operating by these new rules of engagement. One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen, throughout our industry is the conversation around and people's focus being around, oh, well, what are the workarounds? It's like, okay, well, we can't no longer disclose if there's, cooperating commission or whatever, on the MLS. So many different agents are trying to think of and come up with, and I'm sure some of it was just jokes and posting memes and whatever. But sure a lot of that was very serious, right? Of thinking of like, well, how do I have workarounds? Like how can I work around and thinking of creative workarounds to these rules, to these regulations, to these new rules of engagement. And my recommendation to you is don't even let your mind go there. It's like just have that deep level of knowledge of what the rules of engagement are. These are the new rules of engagement. And make sure that you are abiding by these to a T. Look, it is so damn easy to go out there and create a lot of success for ourselves as a real estate professional, like making like this is how we earn incomes for ourselves and for our families. Like it's so easy to do it the right way. Make sure that you're up and on the up and up, to do it in the right legal way without having to go operate in the gray area or look for workarounds. Like my recommendation is to not even go there. It's just too damn easy to go out there and do it the right way and still make a ton of money and still deliver a great product and great service to your clients. Because if we really break down, all of these changes, it's added some extra forms. It's added some extra steps to our process. It's added, different conversations that we're having to have with our buyer clients and seller clients. But when you really break it down, like it's all the same, like meaning, okay, if I'm working with a seller, like the net proceeds that my seller is netting at the end of this is all the same. It all breaks down to being the same. It's just a different detour. It's a different path to the same result. It ends up being the same net, same out of pocket, same everything. Like nothing has, if we really think about this at a very high level, like nothing has really changed. It's just education, process, disclosure, that portion of it has changed, so just making sure that, again, we're not looking for those workarounds. We understand the rules of engagement and we're abiding by these. So I'm going to break down again 6 recommendations. These are the 6 things I'm focused on, that I'm doing, that I'm making sure my agents and my team are doing, that I'm sharing with my coaching clients to recommend that they do. And I want to share these here on the podcast with you. But real quick, before I jump into and break down these 6 recommendations, make sure to check out www.gsdmode.com for more additional free training and resources. And on there, I highly encourage you guys to register for my 6 steps to 3xing or more your real estate business in the next 12 months. I understand that a lot of people's business is either stagnant or down, or maybe it's growing, just not growing at that level that you want. This webinar, I'm walking you through the 6 most important things that you must hone in, that you must dial in order to be a great operator, treat your business as a business so your business can continue to grow and scale regardless of the marketplace. Boom, bust, crash, anything in between. It's like, okay, over my 20-year career, after selling 7,000 homes and becoming one of the top realtors and team leaders on the planet, these are the most 6 important things that I've learned, that I've discovered, that if you really are serious about growing and scaling your business, you need to know, you need to understand, and you need to dial in. So I give you all the information that you need on the training. And then at the end, I give you a download to really have the presentation, which I create as a workbook. So as an implementation execution guide, so you have all the information that you need while you're on the training, but then have the tools and resources they need to execute after the fact. And it's all 100% free. It is 3 hours. It's a 3-hour in-depth training. But the reason why it's 3 hours is, look, I'm not here to waste your time. Like, we go in depth. I want to make sure that you have everything that you need. I explain it at a deep enough level so you can truly grasp it, understand it, so you can go out there and kick ass in your real estate business. So again, go to www.gsdmode.com. You'll see that on the front page. Then you'll see also see a menu item that says free resources. You can see it there where you can opt in, take that training. I'm doing it every single day, taking place right now, to help you go out there and make sure that your business is growing and scaling regardless of the marketplace. Okay, so now let me jump into the 6 recommendations that I have here for you. Okay, so recommendation number 1 is to make sure that you understand, like you are informed, you are educated, you understand at a very high level what is included at the NAR level with the settlement, this proposed settlement statement, right? With these new rules of engagement that we have to abide by. But then from there, make sure that you understand them at your state level. And then from there, make sure that you understand them at your MLS board level and then your brokerage level. Because here's one of the, most challenging parts about all of this is that, okay, NAR came out with, their settlement proposal, right? But then every one of the 50 states, at least here in the US, right, where this applies, had their different interpretations. So how Arizona interpreted this and what they've rolled out is different than California, different than Indiana, different, right? Like every state has different interpretations, but like, okay, Arizona made some interpretations that when I'm reading when I'm reading the NAR settlement proposal, and I'm having a conversation with my attorney, okay, I'm like, hey, dude, I don't think Arizona's interpretation of this is right. Like maybe I shouldn't do one of the paths that Arizona is allowing us to do, because that's in contradiction of what it says right here, in the NAR proposed settlement statement. And I'm not saying that Arizona is wrong. I'm just saying, hey, I just don't necessarily know if I agree with this, based on what I'm interpreting here, and what my attorneys are telling me, my own real estate attorneys are telling me, versus what our state is doing. Because okay, with that and with the thing that I'm thinking about here, because Arizona is one of these states that still is allowing broker to broker cooperation. Now, a lot of brokerages have come out and had that same thought process that I've had, where they're like, hey, we're just not going to allow this. But the state of Arizona is like, hey, we're going to allow it. Now, of course, it can't be on the MLS, but there's this form where I can go to the listing agent and have the listing agent then pay me and split a percentage of their commission that the seller's paying them. So it's kind of just like the old way, other than it's not disclosed, publicly on the MLS, or, disclosed on the MLS, right? Well, when we look at that, okay, that contradicts some of the statements in, the NAR settlement statement. A lot of states have just opted to not allow that altogether. So just because your state is allowing it, that maybe doesn't mean that you should. So when I'm looking at that, I'm like, hey, we got multiple other paths to be able to get compensated, whether that be through the buyer directly, whether that be through the seller directly, whether that be through the seller through concession, there's other ways, or a combination of those ways, to get paid where the net, out of pocket is all the same to my clients. Let's just not even do this other option, that could be in contradiction to NAR stuff. So, with this, I want to make sure that, I'm not just going to rely just on what the state is telling me, just make sure that you have that high level of understanding for overall protection. That's what my recommendation would be for you, whether you want to follow that or not, but then from a state level, again, every state's rolling these out differently. So like in Arizona, based on their interpretation of this, they rolled out 27 new and or amended forms. Not all of the forms were because I think it was just an excuse and a reason to be able to update some of these other forms, but okay, I got to make sure that I know all those forms inside and out, and what scenario and situation I should use those forms. And the more educated that we are, the better that we're able to operate in our business, the better we're able to educate our clientele, and the general consumer, general public out there. Like as an example, and again, I'm just going to speak to my state here in Arizona, because I don't know your state like you do, right? But make sure you know your state. But okay, like publicly, like what is the news coming out and what are they saying? Oh, well, dude, if you want to buy a house now you gotta, you gotta sign a buyer broker agreement. You gotta commit, to a real estate agent, and you gotta come out of pocket for commissions, and that's all like half truths of how they've said that, so we're having to understand, okay, well, what are all of the options here? So if I have a buyer, let's just say it's my area, we get a lot of reloads. So maybe it's a relocation buyer. They're coming out here for their first trip. They don't know me. They were an online lead. They came in. They don't know me from anybody. And maybe they're uncomfortable signing some long-term buyer broker agreement, okay, well, then we have alternatives for that. Where there's verbiage that we could add in the buyer broker agreement for like a fire me guarantee, easy exit agreement, right? We can date the buyer broker agreement just for the day that they're in town and for the properties that we're looking at. That's not locking them into a long-term agreement. There's all of these, different ways that we can overcome what the consumer's concerns are by educating them. But for me to do that, I got to know what the rules of engagement that I'm allowed to abide by and play with. And then it makes it that much easier. Like I don't lose buyer clients or seller clients because of any of these new rules. Nobody, we're not, it's such an easy objection to overcome when somebody's like, well, I don't feel comfortable signing anything before I go look at a property. That is a very easy objection to overcome. Do we have to have them sign something before we look at a property? Yes. But when they're saying, I don't want to sign anything before I look at a property, they're not concerned about having to sign something. What they're concerned about is getting locked into, an agreement with somebody that they don't know, that they haven't met, that they don't know what your capabilities are, that they don't feel comfortable with utilizing and committing long-term to your service, and that's a very valid concern from the consumer. I would be concerned too if I was them, so then we can have conversations that then can minimize, reduce, eliminate their concerns, right? That still allow us to abide by, again, these new rules of engagement. So we want to make sure we're operating by the book. And for you to do that, you got to know these inside and out. Okay, so number 2 is to assess every single one of your client acquisition strategies and then see what areas of changes are necessary and or needed, based on these new rules of engagement. So here's an example. Let's just say I'm doing an open house. Get done with that tour. Hey, so what do you think of this property? Does it meet your needs? Or are you looking for something different? Oh, well, it's a beautiful home. We really love the area. It's a beautiful home, but it's only got 3 bedrooms. We really need 4 bedrooms. I mean, everything else is great. Everything else meets our criteria, but it's a non-negotiable. Like we have to have 4 bedrooms. Yeah, hey, no worries at all. And based on that, I know that this home doesn't meet your needs and it isn't something that's going to work for you. But based on what you said, with the features of this property and the fact that you need 4 bedrooms, there's a few properties in this area. So you're still in the neighborhood that you're looking for, but a few properties in this area that I think that you'd be really excited about that I know are available right now. Hey, I get out of here at 3. Do you have some time to meet back in the area around 4? Maybe go check those out. Okay, so then boom, I'm setting that appointment. Well, then now what am I going to do? I can't go open up those doors. I can do an open house without having to get a buyer broker agreement signed because you technically represent the seller and that's part of, this proposed, like whatever, we're allowed to do that, right? As long as it's a brokerage listing or your listing, right? So then from there, okay, well then old way, pre-August 17th, or whenever your market, rolled these out. Okay, I could just drop it, go meet them, show those properties, then use that as a chance to transition the buyer consult. Okay, well, how do we need to change that up? And then what are you doing? How, like making sure that you're mapping that out of how you're having those conversations. Another example is if you do any element of these kind of large third party, intentional lead sources like Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever. Okay, the old way, when like with our Zillow leads as an examples, okay, we get that call, get that live transfer call, schedule that showing immediately, right? And then we just boom, go out there, show them that property, use that initial first showing as a way to develop that rapport, develop that connection, right? And then transition into a buyer consultation and then a buyer broker agreement. Okay, well, that's no longer allowed, right? We got to have something signed, whether you're able to use the Zillow agreement and Zillow showing agreement in your market, or you got to use a buyer broker agreement. So, just chunking down, okay, here's all my different new client acquisition strategies. Okay, how do I need to make sure that I'm changing up my process to make sure that I am abiding by these new rules of engagement? I had an agent not too long ago reach out to me. I was doing a live training. I hadn't met this agent before this live training. And they asked me, because one of the obstacles that they just had is, they showed up to a property, tried to get them to sign the document. The people refused to sign the document. But then at that point, they felt so pressured. They were just like, hey, I just ended up showing them the property without them signing because I felt so damn pressured. Well, I get that and I understand that. But now you're at the point. It's like when I was 16 years old, man, like right when I got my driver's license. I'm driving down the freeway, like I'm in the front, right, of this pack, or the highway, not freeway. So I'm kind of in the pack, leading the pack, like just how it worked out, like the stoplight, and then I go forward. Well, these cars just ride my ass behind me, and I'm a new driver. I'm kind of getting intimidated, so I just started, speeding up. Well, it didn't stop that cop from giving me my first ticket. I was ended up doing like 15 over. They wrote me up for 10 over. And my excuse was, hey man, like, dude, this guy was just riding my ass. I felt like I needed to speed up, whatever. The cop's like, I don't care. Like that wasn't a great, an excuse just because I felt pressured. That's not an excuse. Like that could be, grounds to get a big fine, lose your license. Like you just broke the rules of engagement that we're abiding by. So we got to think of through those scenarios. Okay. Like what are those? And I'm just telling you right now, objections are just concerns, right? So you got to be able to unpack that root core concern that they have and then think about, okay, well, how do I eliminate those concerns? So like with a buyer broker agreement, like my response to them is, hey, look, there's nothing holding you now. I recommend to, when I say this, because I just know my area's laws. I don't know your area's laws. Maybe this is something that isn't allowed by your broker, isn't allowed by your MLS, isn't allowed by your state, but like in mine as example, there's nothing saying that I can't do that buyer broker agreement just for that day and just for that property. So then that way they're protected. And it's just like, hey, this is just for me to show you this property. If you want to go look at other properties today, tomorrow, any other time, this is not blocking you from looking at other properties with other real estate agents and utilizing them. This just, right. So, just making sure that you understand within your internal process, okay, how am I going to position this? What am I going to do? And how do I handle these different detours that possibly could come up with these? Okay. So then number 3, dial in your internal processes overall. As we are all seeing, if you're doing a decent amount of volume, you're quickly seeing that this is adding a little bit more work to all of our plates. Having to reach out to the cross sell agents, and having those conversations, new documents, new protocols, new processes. A lot of times, most of our time consuming, it's getting better, but at least initially, most of our time consuming stuff was just having to coach along the other cross sale agents and other agents in the industry that, we're doing deals with on our properties, or they're wanting to do deals potentially with us because they weren't educated. But regardless, we want to make this is creating more steps. It's going to create more work. So we need to make sure that your capacity isn't going down. So maybe your capacity in the old way, maybe you're an individual agent, maybe your capacity was 4 deals a month, meaning, with the amount of hours that you're able and willing to work, okay, you're closing 4 deals a month. And that was like, that's like a push, like you're busy as hell. Would be very difficult, if not impossible, for you to close more than that. What we don't want, because of this new additional work, to all of a sudden lower that capacity to now you can only do 3 deals, but you're still working just as hard, so you're making less money. The quickest way, the most effective, efficient way, to increase your capacity is by getting your internal processes honed in and dialed in. So making sure that you're working on that, dialing that in. And processes are just step-by-step documentations, of what your overall strategies are, what you do. Here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, here's step 4. Then you take those processes, those live inside systems, so you're running a system. You're having a systematized business based off of your processes, right? So it's quickest way to increase effectiveness and efficiency. Okay, so number 4, disclose to your clients. Now, this is going to sound like a no shit, no duh, Josh. I get this. I understand this, but I'll just let you know, like here's a big mistake that I'm seeing happen quite frequently. Okay, I go on a listing appointment, or one of my agents goes on a listing appointment. A lot of my coaching clients are coming to me that they're seeing this too. That seller is interviewing. Maybe, they interviewed 2 other agents, or maybe they interviewed another agent before they got there. Now they're disclosing it. They're professionals. They know this stuff, but they're disclosing it. And then now the seller is caught off guard because the other agent didn't disclose that, hey, in this market, now I'm not saying your market's this way, I'm saying my market's this way, right? So right now, my market here in Phoenix, Arizona, we are in a pretty damn quickly declining market. Listing inventory stacking like crazy. Things are sitting, things aren't selling, buyer demand's dropping, so buyers are in control. So in pretty much all cases, not all, but the vast majority, okay, the buyer is going to come in and be successful in the current market climate that we are in here in Phoenix Metro, Arizona. The buyer, because the buyer's in power, buyer's in control. The buyer in most cases is going to come in and ask the seller to pay the buyer agent representation. That's going to be part of their offer. So, okay, where the sellers are getting caught off guard is like, well, I was talking with the other agent. They said commissions would just be this. Now on this estimated net sheet, you're saying that I have to possibly pay this other fee. The other agent didn't say that. So then all of a sudden it looks like their net is worse with you versus the other agent that didn't disclose that, and I don't have a crystal ball, but my guess is this is going to get a lot of damn agents in trouble, potentially open up another lawsuit, different type of a lawsuit, whatever, due to lack of disclosures where people are blindsided. So make sure that you are disclosed. It's no different than, for the vast majority of my career, up until shit just went haywire and crazy in 2020, where we went into that extreme seller's market. For the vast majority of my career, though, because I've been doing this for 20 years now, so like the previous, let's call it 16 years, it was commonplace, pretty much like, dude, every offer that we get, when I'm representing a seller, and then also every offer that we submit when I was representing a buyer, where we're asking the seller to pay the buyer's concessions, right? Like, like, let's just say, an average it would be deal by deal, but let's just say, example, okay, I know that my buyer, they're having a conversation with the lender and knowing what their closing costs are going to be, that we need to ask for, a 3% seller concession to be applied towards buyer's closing costs, prepaids and pounds, so then, okay, when I'm going on that listing appointment with my seller, it's like, okay, hey, here is, based on the comps, based on the market, based on my professional experience and opinion, here is what I believe your property is going to go under contract at. Okay, well, now here's commissions. Here are prorated taxes. Here's HOA disclosure fee, HOA disclosure transfer fee. Here's, well, then I'd have to include, hey, this isn't a guarantee, but the probability is higher than not that the buyer that comes to buy your home is going to ask you to pay for their closing costs. So, they're going to have to pay their down payment, all of that. But, in this market, this is commonplace. So I'd have to disclose that, so then it's like, okay, hey, here is your estimated net before loan payoff. And I want that as close as I possibly can, out front before I even take on that listing. So there's no surprises. Then obviously for each offer that we are getting, then we can get into within sense of, what they're going to actually net in their pocket, based on each offer, but we don't want those surprises. But a lot of agents right now are going in there saying, okay, hey, my commission is X. Maybe they're explaining how, the new rules of engagement with this, NAR settlement. So they're just going there saying, hey, just, here's what my commission is. They're walking them through what the fees are, but then not disclosing, that the probability of a buyer asking this is a fee. So then they're blindsided. So then they get their offer. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, I mean, I'm now netting 15 grand or 10 grand, whatever, less than, you told me I was going to net when we first met, right? Which then, I mean, it makes it harder when we're going in there and having that listing present, because now I got to tell them that agent was essentially, not doing their job, not disclosing things correctly to them, which is shady practice, at least in my opinion. You can agree to disagree with me on that if you want to. But in my opinion, that's extremely shady practice that's taking place. So just making sure when you're talking with a buyer, when you're talking with your sellers, when you're in those consultations, that you're disclosing exactly how you get paid, what to expect, what those expectations are, what the different scenario situations are. Really, really important. Okay, so number 5, look for opportunities. Every time there is change, that creates opportunities. And I'm not talking about workarounds like we talked about before. Look, there's just going to be a lot of that's compliant, fully compliant. There's going to be a continued lots of opportunities, throughout this whole overall process. One of the opportunities is going to be, okay, NAR's on a continued payout for this stuff. So one of the opportunities, you might look at this as a negative. I know most of our industry looks at this as a negative. I look at this as a positive. Is, look, NAR is going to have to increase their fees. So as that majority of our industry is doing lesser and lesser production, fees are going up and up. It's going to make it that much more difficult, that much harder, especially for the part-timers, and I should say part-timers, because I know a lot of part-timers that are amazing agents still that close a ton of business, but those that don't treat this as a profession, that aren't taking it serious, maybe they just pop the onesies and twosies a year, which is about 50% of this industry, right? Which that ends up removing when you got 700, 600,000, 700,000 realtors that are popping, one deal a year. Well, that takes away 600,000 transactions, out of the bucket for the rest of us that are full-time, that are true professionals, so that's one, possible opportunity. But then from there, and look, of course we can't talk commissions, one of the reasons that we're kind of in this position in the first place, but I'll just tell you this, man, it's been much easier for me personally, and, for my agents on my team to go out there and be able to articulate our value and charge what we believe to be worth, because we believe that, hey, we have a superior product, we have superior experience, superior knowledge. So it's just been so much easier to go out there and have those conversations and articulate our value, because we're just having to negotiate our side on this, when it comes to this. So, and just understanding, okay, like with that buyer broker agreement, it's like, okay, you can't charge more, but you can charge less. So having an understanding of that and just looking at, okay, like what, how should we position this from a strategic standpoint? What should I do? How should we position this stuff? Just thinking this thing through. And I'm going to say this right now. And I know I've talked about this a lot in the podcast of, look, I have no beef with discounters. I have no beef with, people that want to charge, for a luxury product, luxury service, premium service that want to, look, every industry out there. It's like, dude, in all industries, you got your Walmart and you got your Whole Foods. It's like you got your, I don't know, Kia, and then you got your Mercedes. Look, you can make a ton of money as a discount agency, discount brokerage. You can make a ton of money with providing a superior service and charging, a superior fee, right? So all models can be amazing. The issue that I see so often in our industry is, okay, so many realtors out there they want to charge for like full service premium, fees, but they're providing discount services. That equation doesn't work, right? Like, okay, if you are going to go out there and position yourself, as having a superior service and charging superior fees, my recommendation to that is make sure that you are truly fulfilling on a superior service, meaning that, okay, either make it a much better overall experience, more convenient, easier, better experience. You're making it a quicker experience, and, or you're netting them a hell of a lot more or getting them a hell of a lot better deal, so you are earning that superior service that you are charging for, whatever you decide that you want that to be, but you're getting them a much better, superior, far better overall result and experience through that. And so many in our industry just don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, like when I start talking to, let's just say listing agents, I'm like, look, when we talk about this, when you got product, promotion, price, the 3 Ps that it takes to go out there and sell a property, I'm like, okay, let's first start off with product. Okay. Do you know exactly what your seller needs to do and be able to educate them on what they need to do to maximize ROI, on energy, effort, and money that they put into that property, to go out there and maximize their net on that property. So like when I'm walking through a seller, it's like, hey, I'm going to guide them through, hey, here's exactly what I need you to do room by room to declutter. Here's exactly what I need you to do for rearrangement. Here's the exact fix-ups, repairs that are going to get you the best bang for your buck. Here's what this looks like. You do this. This is going to help you net this, right? I'm able to, because I've spent the time to hone in and develop those skill sets. So I'm able to guide them through on exactly what to do. And it's just, when you go out there and sell 7,000 homes, like you eventually get this down to an art and science of, I know exactly from the second that they choose a list with me to the second their home sells, exactly what must take place for them to net the most amount of their property they possibly can. My job isn't just to sell my clients' homes, right? And help them, I want to go out there and help them sell their home, get it sold in the quickest time frame possible, but on top of that, my job, equally, if not more importantly, is to not just get it sold, but to ensure that I'm getting them the absolute most I can out of that deal. Have you developed the skill sets, to go out there and negotiate? And do you have the right process dialed in? And, but so many in this, and just like in life, dude, like so many people outside of real estate too, it's like they just want shit done the easy way. And, but anything that takes work and mastery, they're just not willing to put that work, time, energy, and effort. And everybody wants to just, give me the quick pill, the quick fix, so it just makes it so easy to dominate inside this industry. Okay. So then number 6, dial in your presentations, your skills, your USPs. So this goes back to just kind of what I was just talking about a moment ago, right? Like you got to be able to articulate your value. You got to be, that's the whole point of the presentation. Real estate is a 2-step sales process. All your lead gen, lead follow-up exists to set the appointment. At the appointment, when you're conducting that appointment, right, that exists for you to articulate your value so then that they choose you out of all of your competitors. Okay, so what are you doing to go out there and just master your presentations to show that you are the choice? So if I'm up against 3 other agents, 4 other agents, 5 other agents, and I look at this even deeper than that, let's just say, I don't know what the exact count is right now, but last time I checked, there's like 60,000 agents in my MLS, in my market. So I'm always asking myself, okay, what am I doing to differentiate myself from the other 59,999? Like, what am I doing to then convince them that by far, not just, I always look at it as, man, I've lost if it's like, they're like, oh man, this is a hard decision. Just like, okay, I did a podcast the other day for you guys on how to create a killer listing presentation. And just like I talked about in that podcast, I'm like, hey, every element of this, when I think this through, when I'm prepping for this, when I'm putting all this stuff together, I want this to be a clear cut decision of Joshua Smith is by far the best. There is no question to it, like hands down, by far, no comparison. He is the best. So what needs to happen through your whole entire presentations to make that happen? Right. And I highly recommend to go watch that or listen to that podcast, because that everything I'll break down in that podcast also applies to buyer presentations, agent recruiting presentations. I walk you through my 4-step presentation framework to go out there and create effective presentations. They have to have those 4 components. Then asking yourself, okay, what are the skills that you need? Do you know how to, like we just talked about with when it comes to promotion, do you know how to actually price homes correctly? In the different markets, it's easy when everything's selling, everything's popping. But okay, like right now, I'm having agents blow me up all the time here on the podcast, and even agents on my own team right now that maybe, got into the market in 2022, 2023, never experienced a softening, declining market, that don't know how to, it's like, okay, like you got to know how to price homes appropriately in all markets. How I price a home in a declining market is way damn different than how I'm going to price it in an appreciating seller's market. And then we get dialing in your USPs. And this kind of comes to presentations, but USPs are going to be, throughout all of, your conversations, your marketing, your branding, your sales, all of that. So these are unique selling propositions. And part of USPs aren't just like, your home sold guarantee, or I buy it, or love it, leave it guarantees. You can have those sprinkled in. That's something that you want to do. But part of USPs too is, like my most effective one that I've ever had, even though I do like the your home sold guaranteed or we buy it, guaranteed USPs, but the most effective one I've ever done is our absolute no pressure policy. That sets more appointments than any other guarantee, gets me to more tables, gets me in front of people, because I know people want the information. If you look at what does the consumer want? They want the information that they need to make their best informed decision, but they want to do that without being pushed, pressured, or sold. So just give people what they want. So when I'm, hey, just so you know, the sole purpose of this meeting is to provide you with all the information that you need to make your best decision for yourself, for your family. Just so you know, we have a very strict, absolute no pressure policy inside of our organization. So you never have to worry about being pushed, pressured, hard sold. Look, when I'm in a sales situation, I cannot stand it when somebody hard sells me and, it's pushy and hard selling. And, I don't believe in treating others how I don't want to be treated. So again, the sole purpose is just to make sure you have all that information that you need to make your best informed decision for yourself and for your family, right? So making sure that, you're conveying that stuff and conveying those USPs. Other element of USPs that a lot of people don't think about, again, is, okay, what are these detours? Where am I getting resistance? So if somebody's like, hey, I don't want to sign this buyer broker agreement with you. Okay, well, there's legal within the rules of engagement. Like, okay, that is not an objection. I don't want to say that people don't say that, but it's so damn easy to overcome that. Just no different than, if I'm going on a listing with an expired and they're nervous about making the mistake that they made before with choosing the wrong realtor and being stuck in a long-term 6-month contract. Okay, very easy to overcome that and still get them to sign that day, right? So then just thinking about, okay, how do I overcome these concerns, these objections, right? Those are unique selling propositions because you're offering a solution. Like, do people want to go look at homes? They want to be informed and educated. They want to go look at homes. They want to, initiate and start the process. They're choosing not to because there's a block. So I always look at this of like, okay, you got this wall that comes up. They're wanting to get from point A to point B, but all of a sudden in the middle, right, this wall comes up. My job is to be able to identify that wall and just lower it so I can get them. Because if you look at, like, well, what are we as real estate professionals? Like people already sold on the fact they want to buy and sell real estate. It's our job to articulate that we are the best guide to get them from the current living situation, the situation that they want to go to, right? Same thing for team leaders and broker owners. Maybe you're not working with buyers or sellers anymore, but maybe working with your agents. It's like, okay, it's my job. Like, they already sold on a career in real estate. It's my job to articulate I'm the best guide to get them from where they're at to making their real estate goals a reality. So it's all the same crap. So making sure that you're dialing in your presentations, dialing your skills, negotiation skills, all the skills that you need to have success with this. Plus, just these are skills that this is all shit we should have in place anyway, right? And making sure that you're honing in your USPs. All right, so I hope that this is helpful. Hope that you guys are taking this stuff serious, because this is serious stuff. And again, make sure to check out gsdmode.com for more additional free resources and training. Truly appreciate y'all. Keep crushing it. And I'll talk to you next time. Peace.